Good. It's nice to see you all again and talk to you. And over the last series of talks, we spoke about the Lord Gautama Buddha, his background, Buddha's teachings, the dispensation, and the Buddhist doctrine in general. And we covered the specific themes of the Buddhist doctrine with the final intention of liberating from suffering and the samsara. And last time we spoke about concentration meditation, the stepping stone step to real Buddhist path of liberation. And today we are going to be talking about insight meditation, that is Vipassana Bhavana, and that is really the pinnacle of the Buddhist practice. Samma Sambuddha appears in the world to discover this path, the insight meditation, and teach us what it is so that we can also practice it and eradicate all our mental defilements and attain enlightenment and Nibbana. So let us begin. Now, I like to talk a bit about Buddhist meditation, though we talked about it last time. The meditation is called Bhavana in Pali. And that's a cultivation of the mind, the wholesome cultivation of the mind and mental development. And that is really an essential aspect of the Buddhist path of liberation. And as we know, there are two types of meditation: concentration meditation and insight meditation. And as we talked about last time, the aim of the concentration meditation is to develop a calm, a tranquil mind, concentration, and a unified mind. But the aim of the insight meditation is really to gain a direct understanding of the reality of all phenomena in the universe, including us and our own experiences. Now, when we talked about concentration meditation and insight meditation separately, but in reality, Buddha did not describe these two aspects as two separate practices. The Buddha described them as two components of the same practice. And the division into concentration meditation and insight meditation seems to have appeared later. And the concentration meditation, of course, existed even before the time of Lord Gautama Buddha. And as we know, when Prince Siddhartha left home to become an ascetic, he first went to two of the meditation masters at that time called Alara Kalama and Uddaka Ramaputra. And Alara Kalama was an expert of concentration meditation up to the 7th of the 8 jhanas that one can attain. And ascetic Gautama mastered them quickly and then moved to Uddaka Ramaputra. Uddaka Ramaputra was an expert in attaining the jhanas, all the jhanas up to the 8th jhana. And ascetic Gautama mastered that quickly. But then he was disappointed because the concentration of the mind and the jhanas were not what he was looking for. He was looking for a path of liberation to eradicate suffering and attain enlightenment and Nibbana. So while concentration meditation is practiced by both Buddhist and non-Buddhist meditators, the insight meditation, Vipassana meditation, was discovered by the Buddha himself. And in the Buddhist path of liberation, we know that the concentration meditation and insight meditation complement each other. So as I said, the aim of the concentration meditation is to develop jhanas and for worldly benefit, like a calm, tranquil mind to enjoy the mental bliss. Some may develop jhanas to develop supernormal powers, and some expect to be reborn in Brahma worlds, celestial worlds. But wherever they are born, they are still in the samsara. They have not got out of the cycle of birth and death. So they are bound to face birth, death, and all the suffering involved. And again, in concentration meditation, the mental hindrances, the negative aspect of the mind, are only temporarily suppressed. They are not eradicated. And similarly, the mental defilements like the craving, the hatred, the delusion, and all the other mental defilements may be temporarily suppressed, but they are not eradicated either. The advantage of developing concentration meditation is that we can use it as a base, as the stepping stone to go on to develop insight meditation. So the aim of the insight meditation is really for liberation from suffering, liberation from samsara, cycle of rebirth and death. And in insight meditation, the mental hindrances, the negative aspects of the mind, are gradually eradicated completely, not suppressed, eradicated. And again, the mental defilements like the raga, dvesha, moha, the craving, the ill will and delusion, ignorance, they are gradually eradicated completely. And finally, when we complete the insight meditation, and that leads to attainment of wisdom through the 4 stages of enlightenment. We will talk about it later. So insight meditation is generally known as vipassana bhavana. And vipassana is the Pali word for insight. In vipassana, vi means intensive, deep, clear. And passana means seeing or perceiving. So vipassana bhavana is the technique of deep seeing, perceiving in a precise manner to see what the true reality of phenomena, including ourselves and our experience, from moment to moment. So through insight meditation, we are hoping to gain an insight into physical and mental phenomena as they really happen, not as they really appear to be, because whatever we see and experience, we experience as they appear to be, but that is not the reality. That's not the true aspects of phenomena. And it's only through vipassana bhavana that we will gain an insight into what reality is. And what the reality of all phenomena in this universe is that they are impermanent, anicca. And somewhere or other, it will lead to suffering, dukkha. And there is no person, I or me, there's no self in any of these, anattas. So the final 3 characteristics that we will realize through insight meditation is that all phenomena are impermanent and they lead to suffering, and there is no something called self there. And in Buddhist teaching, 3 types of knowledge are being described. And the first type of knowledge is the acquired knowledge. That's called suttamaya jnana. And that's what happens when we listen to a talk like this, or we read, or we discuss the Buddhist doctrine, and whatever knowledge that we get through hearing, reading, or discussing, and that knowledge is called suttamaya jnana, the acquired knowledge. Once we have gained that acquired knowledge, then we start thinking about that knowledge, and start reasoning, pondering, analyzing, and come to some kind of a conclusion about that aspect of teaching. And that knowledge is called chintamaya jnana. That's the second level. But the final knowledge is required really for the liberation, and that's called knowledge acquired through contemplation. That's called bhavanamaya jnana in Pali. And that final knowledge, the real knowledge, the bhavanamaya jnana, can only be gained through insight meditation. So the three types of knowledge, the suttamaya jnana, the acquired knowledge, the chintamaya jnana, the knowledge that we acquire by thinking, pondering, reasoning, analyzing, investigating. And the final knowledge is the knowledge we get through contemplation, meditation, through insight meditation, and that's called bhavanamaya jnana. And mindfulness, of course, is a key aspect of insight meditation. And that's why the vipassana bhavana is often referred to as mindfulness meditation. And the Pali word sati has several meanings, such as memory, mindfulness, recollection, wakefulness. But mindful awareness is the awareness to the content of one's experience as it happens from moment to moment in the immediate present. And without reacting to it, without making any judgment, just to observe, be aware, to learn the reality of phenomena. Now again, in concentration meditation, the meditator has to maintain the concentration on a single object of meditation. And we talked about 40 objects of meditation last time. So the meditator chooses one of the 40 meditation objects, pay attention to that object, and in order to develop the concentration. But in insight meditation, the meditator has to pay attention to all the mental and physical processes, not concentrating on one particular object. We may begin meditation using a single object in order to develop some concentration. But when we move on to insight meditation, we focus our attention to things as they happen from moment to moment. And as we know, right mindfulness, sammasati, is one of the 8 factors of the Noble Eightfold Path. So the path to liberation in Buddhism is the Noble Eightfold Path, and it has 8 factors: right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, sammasati, and then right concentration. And again, Buddha has talked about 5 spiritual faculties that we need to develop during our path of liberation. And they are called spiritual faculties, so pancha indriya. And they are faith, saddha, effort, virya, and mindfulness again, sati. Then concentration and wisdom. And Buddha also spoke about 7 factors of enlightenment. They're called sapta bojjhanga. And again, they begin with mindfulness. The first factor is mindfulness, sati. And once we have developed mindfulness, we start investigating, and we have to put a lot of effort. And then joy and tranquility will arise, and concentration, and finally equanimity. So mindfulness is also the first factor of the 7 factors of enlightenment. The mindfulness meditation was taught by the Buddha in the Satipatthana Sutta. There are 2 discourses of Satipatthana Sutta, one in the Majjhima Nikaya, the collection of the middle discourses, and it also appears in the Digha Nikaya, the collection of the long discourses. So Satipatthana, sati in Pali means mindfulness, and patthana means foundation. So Satipatthana means foundations of mindfulness. And Buddha described the Satipatthana, the foundations of mindfulness, as the direct way to purify all our mental defilements, to overcome sorrow, to overcome lamentation, to eradicate suffering, to eradicate mental grief. And it is through Satipatthana that we enter the noble path of liberation. And finally, through Satipatthana, we can attain realization of Nibbana. And Buddha described 4 foundations of mindfulness. The first one is contemplating on our body, Kayanupassana. Second aspect is contemplating on our feelings, Vedananupassana. Third aspect is contemplating on our mind state, Chittanupassana. And finally, contemplating on the mind objects, Dhammanupassana. So let us look at the first aspect of contemplating on the body, Kayanupassana. And Buddha has described 5 different aspects that we can follow in order to contemplate on our body. And the first aspect, of course, is mindfulness of breathing, mindfulness of in-breath and out-breath, called Anapanasati. We are going to look at it in detail later on, so I'll skip that for the time being. And the second aspect is maintaining mindfulness of the 4 body postures. And throughout our life, we spend our life in 4 postures. We sit, we lie, we stand, or we walk. Those are the 4 main postures. So in insight meditation, in mindfulness meditation, we are maintaining mindfulness, awareness of each posture that we maintain at any particular moment. If I am standing, I am standing. If I am sitting, I am aware that I am sitting. If I am lying, I am aware that I am lying. And if I walk, I am aware that I am walking. So the mindfulness of the 4 body postures. And then the third aspect is the clear comprehension, sampajana. And this is to maintain mindfulness in each and every action that we do from the time we wake up in the morning till we go to bed. Each and every action we do with mindfulness and with awareness. So we get up in the morning, get up from the bed mindfully. We brush our teeth mindfully, wash our face mindfully, we dress mindfully, we go to the kitchen mindfully, make a cup of tea mindfully. Everything we do it mindfully. Dressing, undressing, going to the toilet, walking, doing our work, driving, walking, whatever action is done in clear comprehension, you perform that with full awareness and mindfulness. And the fourth aspect is the mindfulness, repulsiveness of the body. And as we know, although we can see our one physical body, this physical body consists of 32 parts. There are 20 solid parts and there are 12 liquid parts. And the solid parts are something like head hair, the body hair, the nails, the tooth, and the skin, the muscles, the tendons, the bone marrow, kidneys, and then the heart, and then in the abdomen, we got the liver, spleen, diaphragm, and we got the lungs, and go on like that. There are 20 solid parts, including the brain, and there are 12 liquid parts with bile and the phlegm and the blood and the sweat and pus and tears, saliva, like that. So in this aspect of mindful meditation, we become mindful of the repulsiveness, because all this part eventually age and rot. So we are mindful of the repulsiveness of the body parts. And the fifth aspect is we are going into even deeper aspects of the body. Even these 32 aspects are made of 4 base elements of Patavi, Apo, Tejo, Vayu. That's the element of solidity, element of liquidity, element of heat, and element of air. And we become mindful of even those elements, material elements. And finally, the sixth aspect of contemplating on the body is to contemplate on various stages of a decaying corpse. And of course, in the days of the Buddha, the bodies were left on the cemeteries. So the meditators could find dead bodies in various stages of decomposition. And the Buddha has described 9 stages of decomposition. So in contemplating on the body, first the mindfulness of the breathing, then the mindfulness of the 4 body postures, then clear comprehension, mindfully completing all our actions, mindfulness, the repulsiveness of our body parts, mindfulness of the 4 base elements, and then finally the 9 stages of the decaying dead body. So that's the contemplating on the body. And the second aspect is we contemplate on our feelings. And as we know, there are 3 types of feelings: the pleasant feelings, the unpleasant feelings, and neutral feelings. So when we experience a pleasant feeling, we are aware, we are mindful that I am experiencing a pleasant feeling. When I am experiencing unpleasant feeling, I am aware, I am mindful that I am experiencing an unpleasant feeling. And similarly, when I feel a neutral feeling, I am mindful of that. And I'm also mindful whether those feelings are coming from my sensory organs like the eye, the ear, the nose, tongue, body, or they are coming from states like concentration, meditation. But there is a difference between feelings that arise from the sensory organs and the feelings that arise through meditation. And the third aspect is the contemplating on the mind state, because from moment to moment, our mind state keeps changing. And one tries to be aware, and Buddha has described 16 mind states that we can be aware of. So at any given moment, is my mind consisting of lust or no lust? Has my mind got hate or no hatred? Is it ignorant or not ignorant? Is it a lazy mind, distracted mind, developed, undeveloped? It's like that. But Buddha has described 16 states of mind states. And when during the waking hours, we become aware, mindfulness of our mind state at that particular moment. And the fourth aspect is the contemplating on the mind objects, the mental factors. And the Buddha has described 5 categories. The first category is the 5 mental hindrances, pancha nivarana. These are the mental hindrances that appear whenever we try to meditate and concentrate our mind. And then we become mindful of the 5 aggregates of clinging that we are made of. Then the internal and external sense bases, and the 7 enlightenment factors, and finally the 4 noble truths. So there are 5 categories, and the first category is the 5 mental hindrances. As we start meditating, as you know, all sort of mental defilements appear in our mind, and they could be sensual desire, or it could be ill will, hatred, anger, or it will be laziness, drowsiness, or it could be agitation of the mind, or remorse and regrets about various things we have done or not done, and all types of skeptical doubt about the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, the training that we have, the meditation techniques. So all these, when they appear, that we are mindfulness each and every of them. And the second category are the 5 aggregates that we are made of. And all of us are made of a body and the mind. So the body is the corporeal body, the rupa. And our mental aspects got 4 aspects, that the feelings, the perception, and our thinking, mental formation, and our consciousness. So we become aware and mindfulness of these factors. And the third category are the 6 internal and external sense bases, the eye and whatever we see through the eyes, the ear and what we hear through the ears, the nose and the smells that we smell, tongue and the taste we experience, the body and the sensations, the touch sensations, and the mind and the mental objects, the thoughts and imagination. So we become aware of them. And then the 7 enlightenment factors I have already mentioned, mindfulness, investigation of the Dhamma, effort, joy, tranquility, concentration. They're all mental factors, mental objects that we can contemplate on during insight meditation. And finally, we contemplate on the Four Noble Truths, the truth of suffering, dukkha satya, the truth of the origin of the suffering, the craving, the noble truth of cessation of suffering, the nibbana, and the path to cessation of suffering, the noble eightfold path. So those are the four aspects, four foundations of mindfulness. That's contemplating on the body, contemplating on the feelings, contemplating on the mind state, and contemplating on the mind objects. And there are four approaches that a meditator can take when one goes into insight meditation. Some meditators may find it convenient to begin with concentration meditation first and then go on to insight practice. And that's called samatha yanika. The yanika means a vehicle. So one begins with concentration meditation and then go on to insight practice. Or some meditators will prefer to start with insight practice and then go on to develop concentration. And some meditators do it in parallel. They practice both concentration and insight practice parallel. That's called yuganadha. Or some meditators will do away with the full concentration meditation and go straight into insight practice alone. And when we do that, we are supposed to develop what's called momentary concentration, called kanika samadhi. And that seems to be enough for an experienced insight meditation to go into insight practice. So the four approaches: concentration followed by insight practice followed by concentration practice, combine them both in parallel, or go straight into insight practice. And when we do the insight meditation and try to realize the reality, what we realize first is everything in this universe is impermanence. So first we realize the perception of impermanence, the anicca sanya. And if everything is impermanent, that is not pleasant, that is not satisfactory. So the second aspect is where we perceive the unsatisfactoriness, the dukkha nature. And then finally, if everything is impermanent, if everything is unsatisfactory, I cannot be in charge of them. There is no me or I who is in charge. So that's the anicca, absence of a self. And a meditator who attains enlightenment obviously cannot realize all three at the same way, in the same way. So some meditators tend to reflect mainly on the aspect of impermanence. And some meditators reflect mainly on the unsatisfactoriness. And some, they predominantly meditate on the lack of self, the three aspects. And depending on what aspect of the three characteristics they practice, the Nibbana has been described as three types. So if one meditator is predominantly practicing the impermanence aspect, it's called Animitta Nibbana. If one predominantly focuses on unsatisfactoriness, the dukkha nature, that's called Appanahita Nibbana. And if a meditator focuses mainly on the non-self nature, and the Nibbana that person attains is called Sunyata Nibbana. And Buddha described this in his second sutta. As you remember, when Buddha became the Buddha, the first discourse he delivered was Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta to the 5 disciples. And the second discourse was Anatta Lakkana Sutta. And in this sutta, Buddha was questioning the 5 ascetics. Is form, the body, is it permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, sir. So what is if something is impermanent, is it pleasant or unpleasant? Unpleasant, sir. And if something is impermanent and unpleasant, can it be considered as me or I, or this is I? No, sir. And the Buddha applied same questioning in relation to the feeling, perception, mental formation, and consciousness. So when we develop wisdom through insight meditation, we develop wisdom and we get rid of ignorance. And what is ignorance? Through ignorance, we have mental perversions. We see things not as real. We accept things as they appear to be. So whenever we see things, hear things, what is impermanent, we take it as permanent. And what is unsatisfactory and unpleasant, we take it as pleasant and satisfactory. And what is not self, we consider it as self. And what is unattractive is considered as attractive. So when we develop wisdom, we consider impermanent things as impermanent. We take unsatisfactory, unpleasant things as unpleasant. And when there is no self, we accept there is no self. And we take unattractive things as unattractive. So through wisdom, we get rid of the 4 mental perversions and begin to see things as they really are. At the moment, there are 3 popular Vipassana meditation methods. All 3 came from Burma, and they are all popular in the East and the West. And the first is the Vipassana taught by Mahasi Sayadaw. Mahasi Sayadaw was a well-known meditator and a monk in Burma. And in his technique, Vipassana technique, there's no formal development of concentration, and begins with observing the rising and falling of the abdomen. And throughout the meditation, there is sitting and walking meditation during the day. So that's called Mahasi method. And the second method, the popular one, especially in the West, is Vipassana as taught by Mr. Goenka. And Mr. Goenka was a disciple of Yuba King in Burma. And this technique was introduced by Lady Sayadaw. And again, it starts with some concentration based on the breath, in-breath and out-breath. And then it goes on to contemplating on the feelings, the Vedana and body scanning. And then finally, Vipassana is taught by Venerable Pa-Auk Sayadaw. And in his method, one has to develop concentration meditation first, right up to the 4th deep absorption jhana, and then focus on the base elements and dependent. So there are 3 popular Vipassana techniques at the moment. And I like to go into a bit detail of the Anapanasati Bhavana. That's the mindfulness of the in-breath and out-breath. And as we discussed, it was the first technique introduced by Buddha in the Satipatthana. And is Anapanasati. Ana means breath in breath. Apana means out breath, and sati means mindfulness. So in Anapanasati Bhavana, we use the breath as the focus or frame of reference, and to develop a collected mind from practicing on the in-breath and out-breath. And in Theravada Buddhism, it's a core meditation practice, the most popular meditation practice in Theravada Buddhism. And as we know, Prince Siddhartha, when he was just age 5 years or something, he practiced this bhavana, Anapanasati Bhavana. And on the night that he became the Buddha, when he got enlightened, again, he began practicing Anapanasati. And I'm told that, I have read that every Samma Sambuddha, on the day of the enlightenment, they practice Anapanasati Bhavana. So it's a core practice in Anapanasati, in Theravada Buddhism. And the good thing about this in-breath and out-breath meditation is that it can be used both for concentration meditation and insight meditation. And the mind is obviously a wandering and a distracted mind. And Buddha compared our mind to a wild monkey jumping from one tree to another non-stop. So what happens, what we try to do in breath meditation is to try to tame this monkey mind using our breath as the focus. And it's similar to, Buddha said, it's similar to taming a wild animal, a wild elephant or a wild bull. We catch one wild elephant and bring it home, and then we tie it to a post with a rope or something. And that is what we are trying to do in breath and out breath meditation. So here the mind is, the wild animal is the mind, the rope is mindfulness, and the post is the breath. So it's similar to taming a wild animal. And Buddha described the Anapanasati Bhavana in the Anapanasati Sutta. That's a discourse in the Majjhima Nikaya, collection of the middle length discourses. And there Buddha described both the practice and the benefits of the Anapanasati. So one who has the intention of doing the Anapanasati, first they have to find an appropriate place to meditate. And in those days, the Buddha of Gili advised the monks to go into the forest, go and sit at the root of a tree, or go to a solitary place. So in Pali, Buddha said, Arannigatava, Rukkamulagatava, Sunnagaragatava. But obviously, it's not practical for all of us to do that. So a quiet, comfortable, a clean place in our own house with no distractions, we are not disturbed by other people or external events. So a quiet place in our own office or house or wherever we are can be used for Anapanasati. I find it helpful to have a dedicated place to meditate. If I am practicing in the house, I dedicate one place. This is my meditation place, and that helps. And also to have a regular time of the day to get into the habit of that. And that adherence to that regular time can also be helpful. And Buddha described the posture that is helpful in Anapanasati is to sit down cross-legged with the body in the erect position. And if it is difficult, and one could assume another sitting position. And keeping a straight back obviously helps with the respiration, the breathing. And at the same time, if you maintain a crooked back, that will cause pain. And maintaining efforts to keep the straight back can maintain our alertness during meditation. So sitting position should not be too uncomfortable or painful, because that doesn't help the meditation. And on the other hand, it shouldn't be too comfortable either, because if the posture is too comfortable, then invariably we might go into a drowsiness and tends to sleep. And if helpful, one could use a meditation cushion or even sit on a chair if one cannot sit on the floor. And once settled in the sitting posture, we generally close our eyes and fix our awareness on our in-breath and out-breath. And why do we use the breath as the meditation object? Because the breath is always there. It's a naturally occurring meditation object. We don't need to make one. We don't need to find one. It is already there in us, with us all the time. And it's mobile. Wherever we are, wherever we go, the breath is with us. So anywhere we can practice Anapanasati. And the breath is also a good reflection of our state of our body and the mind and the emotions. So as you know, if you are tired or relaxed, or if you are angry or if you are happy or whatever our emotions and mind and the body, our breath will reflect that. And it's a living experience at the present moment. At every moment of life, the breath is there. And it's also constantly changing. And it's pure. It's not linked to any mental defilements, greed, hatred, or delusions. So breath is one of the best meditation objects. So we have found a place to meditate, and we have sat down, and we are maintaining our posture erect, and we are seated comfortably, and we have closed our eyes. Then we try to locate where the breath is, the focus, the location of the breath. And we can do that by taking a deep breath in and out. So we take a deep breath in or out. And then we notice where is the focus that I can feel the sensation of the in and out air. And one tip is, as you know, when we take a breath in, air feels a bit cooler. And when the breath goes out from the body due to the body temperature, it feels a little warmer. So you even using that also, we can try to locate where is in the skin that we feel the in-breath and out-breath. And for some people, it may be just inside the nose. But for most people, it's in the triangular between the tip of the nose and the upper lip. So within that triangle, one should be able to locate where the air touches the skin as we breathe in and as we breathe out. And if it is difficult to start with, sometimes it's helpful to take a few hard breaths to try to locate where the air is touching the skin. And once we have located the spot, then we just watch in-breath and out-breath passing through that spot. And it may take some while for some people to locate that place. But of course, when we start Anapanasati, we have to expect problems. And it happens to every meditator. Because as I said, the mind is like a wild monkey. And its nature is to wander off, go back to the past, go into the future, dream, daydream, and all sorts of things. So if the mind keeps wandering when we start Anapanasati, don't get disappointed, don't get upset, don't get irritated, don't get angry. Just note the distraction. And especially in the Mahasi technique, they advise to note every distraction. So some thoughts coming into our mind, we just not thinking, not the content of the thought. If we feel something, we acknowledge feeling or hearing, not what we hear, or daydreaming, or planning, or remembering. So we note the distraction and then gently and firmly bring the mind back to the breath. And eventually, it will take time, obviously, but eventually the breath will settle, the mind will settle on the breath. And once the mindfulness firmly established on the in-breath and out-breath, then in the Anapana Sutta, Buddha has given 16 contemplations, 16 steps that we can practice. And the 16 steps are given in 4 tetrads, groups of 4. And each group represents an aspect of the Satipatthana Sutta. Remember, in the Satipatthana Sutta, Buddha gave 4 foundations: the contemplation of the body, contemplation of the feelings, contemplation of the mind state, and contemplation of the mind object. So the 4 tetrads in the Anapana, Sati Bhavana, correspond. The first 4 correspond with the foundation of the mindfulness of the body. The second tetrad, contemplation of the feelings. The third tetrad, contemplation of the mind. And the 4th tetrad corresponds to the mind objects. So I will just briefly go through them, not in detail. So once we have settled our mind on the breath, And when we keep breathing generally, we begin to realize that my in-breath has a certain length, and my out-breath has a certain length, and that I take it as the average length of my in-breath and the out-breath. And when we start meditating on the breath, occasionally we may find that one particular in-breath is longer than my average, or one particular out-breath is longer than my usual average out-breath. And we become mindful and just be aware of that. Occasionally one breath will be shorter, or one out-breath will be shorter, and we just note it and become aware. And in the third stage, we become sensitive to the entire body. Now, this entire body is interpreted in two ways. Some teachers interpret as become aware of the whole physical body while meditating. And other teachers interpret as being aware of the whole body of the breath. As you feel when you breathe in and out, there's a beginning of the breath, there's a middle, and there's an end. Then again, out breath, there's a beginning, a middle, and end. So the entire body here means the entire body of the breath. And that is what I am practicing, rather than focusing on the whole physical body while breathing. And we become aware of that. And then as we keep breathing, then obviously the breath becomes finer and finer and finer. And that's a calming of the breath. And we become aware of that. So that is the first tetrad. And then in the second tetrad, that's go on to contemplation of the feeling. Whatever rapture or pleasure that we feel in our mind, we become aware. And the third tetrad is the mind state. We are sensitive to the mind states while we are breathing. And finally, the mental objects. And here we are focusing on things like the anicca, the impermanence and lack of craving, things like that. And Buddha says that when we fully cultivate the anapanasati, and it's equal to completing on the 4 foundations in Satipatthana Sutta. And when we complete the foundations of mindfulness, and that leads to the perfecting the 7 factors of enlightenment. And when the 7 enlightenment factors are perfected, and that is really we are attaining the wisdom and the liberation, the Nibbana. So through Anapanasati Bhavana, one can really attain enlightenment, Nibbana. Now, I will not go into details, but Buddha has said when we practice insight meditation, we develop certain insight knowledges. They are called Vipassana Jnana. And Buddha has described 16 of them at various stages. And I just to mention by passing. The first is the knowledge that there's a difference between nama and rupa, the material aspects and the mental aspects, and that's called nama rupa paricheda jnana. And then the cause and effect, conditionality. And I would suggest, if someone is interested, to read about them rather than going into details into all the 16. So there are 16 insight knowledges. They are called Vipassana knowledges. And the final knowledges are really the knowledge that one has attained Sotapanna, the first stage, that one has attained the second stage, Sakadagami, the third stage, one has attained, the first stage. So when we practice insight meditation and we attain all the insight knowledges, and we get rid of mental defilements gradually and realize the 4 noble truths and attain the first stage of enlightenment, and that's called stream enterer or Sotapanna. And when one becomes a Sotapanna, remember we have talked about 10 fetters, and the first 3 fetters are personality view, Sakkaya Ditti, skeptical doubt, and attachment to rites and ritual. One get rid of those 3 fetters and attain the first stage of Sotapanna. And that again, there are 3 knowledges when you become a Sotapanna. First is the path, the knowledge of the path, the knowledge that you have attained the fruit of the path, and then the reviewing knowledge. So at each stage, there are 3 knowledges. And then we go on to second stage. So having eradicated the first 3 fetters, then in the second stage, we kind of weaken the next 2 fetters called Kamaraga and Ilvil, Patiga. And again, there are 3 knowledges of the Sakadagami, the path knowledge, the fruit knowledge, and the reviewing knowledge. And then the third stage, we eradicated the remaining 2 fetters of the sense, desire, and ill will. And then one becomes a non-returner, that's Anagami. Then again, there are 3 knowledges, the path, fruit, and reviewing knowledge. And finally, one eradicates all the 10 fetters and becomes an Arahant. Right. So the direct path, obviously, to liberation is the Noble Eightfold Path. And the Buddha described the 8 factors in 3 stages, the Sila, Samadhi, and Pajna. So one is to develop right morality first. And with right morality, we go on to develop concentration of the mind, Samadhi. And with the concentration of the mind, we go on to insight meditation to develop right wisdom. So Sila, Samadhi, Prajna. And with wisdom, we eradicate all our mental defilements and we realize the 4 noble truths and attain enlightenment and final Nibbana. So thank you very much.